please join me in welcoming our governor, Honorable Greg Abbott.
Thank you all very, very much, and please give it up for Senator Brian Hughes for the very kind introduction. But more importantly, let's say thank him for his great service representing East Texas in the Texas Capitol. He does it the way you would expect an East Texan to do so, with the strong beliefs grounded in the values of East Texas. And I got to tell you, the Texas Senate would not be what it is without Brian Hughes. Brian, thank you very much. Also, I want to thank your local representatives, Representatives Alders and Hefner. If I understand correctly, Representative Alders is not challenged in the primary, which means that he can go ahead and get comfortable in getting his office in order after the election. We have Cole Hefner, who does have an opponent in the primary, and I was with him, a week ago in Mount Pleasant, campaigning for him there, making sure that he once again is going to cross the finish line. I got to tell you, both of these representatives, they are salt of the earth, but also they get things done, which is what you need. And most importantly, they get things done that are consistent with the values of this region. You may know them personally and deal with them and things like that, but you may not know what happens behind the scenes when they really are going to work every day. And I have been there. In my office, at their office, on their floor, and these guys go to work every day ensuring that other members who may be from Austin, Texas, or El Paso, Texas, or even Dallas, Texas, that those people know what it means to be a representative from East Texas and what East Texas values stand for. So please, give it up for all of your local state representatives and your senators. And I'm proud that they're joined tonight by their neighbor, a very close friend of mine, and someone who is a beacon of fighting for the values that matter the most, including what he's working on concerning water. My good friend, Cody Harris. Cody, thank you, man, for being over here. And to be honest, I was kind of surprised tonight when I got here and I saw your chairman of the Smith County Republican Party here, because I do these events across the state, and whether it's in Cameron County or Hidalgo County or some other place in the state of Texas, a person I run into every single time is Chairman Stein. And so I'm shocked to see you at Tyler tonight, but I think probably no chair works harder for the $0 that he gets paid. So give it up for your great county chair. And at his table and the table I was sitting at, you have people who are truly Texas legends. I'm not saying East Texas legends. I'm saying Texas legends. I'm saying Texas would not be the same without them. Definitely East Texas would not be what it is without them. These people help shape and form this community, help shape and form our state. And that is Jim and Margaret Perkins. Thank you all so much for everything you all do for our state. Missing from this festivity tonight, however, is maybe somebody who's doing more than all of us combined to move the needle in advancing the state of Texas, and that is the chair of the Board of Regents for the University of Texas, Kevin Eltime, who's really just knocking the cover off the ball. And two other friends that you guys see earlier, I just want to mention them again. One is a guy that I've worked with in the Texas Senate for a decade, to make sure we got every meaningful piece of legislation across the finish line. And a guy who made a sacrifice and chose to be the candidate to run and be your comptroller, and that is Kelly Hancock. Kelly, thank you very much for your leadership and your friendship. And a guy that we were talking about at our table, and a guy who is equally salt of the earth, and maybe I should say sweetness of the earth because of his honey, and that is Nate Sheets, who's going to be your next ag commissioner here in the state of Texas. Nate, great to see you, man. So I'm here tonight, even though I could be, and maybe should be, in other places in Texas. But there's no more important place to be than here. And I'll tell you why. And that is because we are on the first day of the election in this primary season, which is going to be setting the stage for what's going to happen in the general election in November. And there's no more pivotal county, no more essential county in the state to dictating the outcome of the elections than Smith County, Texas. We need you and what you can achieve for us in the elections this coming election cycle. Let me put some math behind what I just said. The last time I ran for re-election, y'all gave me 74% of the vote here in Smith County. That actually is a percent more than what you gave to Donald Trump last year. But, and listen, as good as 75% may seem, this next cycle, this coming November in 2026, I need 80% of the vote right here in Smith County. The reason we need your votes to offset every communistic and socialistic vote in Travis County, in Harris County, in Dallas County, in Bexar County. Y'all may not see these people every day. You may not realize what's happening in these communities because you live in East Texas. And you may think that people across the state may share the same values that you do. The fact is they don't. The fact is we have our own Mandamis in Texas. You know, Mandami the commie, the mayor of New York City. You got socialist leaders across the state. And as you know, Representatives Alder and Hefner know, and definitely Senator Hughes know, one thing we have to do every single session is to go back into the Capitol and push back against the socialist agenda that's trying to hijack the state of Texas. Let me give you one example. It's a life or death issue we had to fight for this past session. These socialist judges, and by the way, when they run for office, they advertise that they are socialists, just like Mandami advertised he was a communist. These socialist judges don't believe in keeping dangerous criminals behind bars. And so it was shocking, but maybe not surprising. There have been more than 200 people in the state of Texas in just the last couple of years who were murdered by someone who had been previously arrested for murder and let out of jail on easy or no bail. Those people should be alive today. And we made sure that in the future that would not happen. Because I worked with your delegation and also Texas, and we got passed laws as well as a constitutional amendment to ensure dangerous, murderous criminals will remain where they belong, and that is behind bars. And this is really nothing more than an extension of what we saw just a few years ago. You remember this movement to defund the police? You saw it up in Minneapolis, and look what a disaster zone Minneapolis is. But that is where the defund the police movement began. Then it swept to Chicago and New York and LA, and yes, it even swept to Texas. Austin, Texas, Dallas, San Antonio, Houston. I don't know about Tyler. I'd be surprised if it happened in Tyler. They picked the wrong place to do it if it happened in Tyler. But when I saw it trying to sweep across Texas, I said, not on my watch are we going to allow our law enforcement to be defunded. And so I worked with your legislators and got a bill to my desk that I signed that will defund any city that defunds their police. We as a state must be crystal clear. We are not Minnesota. We are Texas. And in Texas, we support our law enforcement officers. We also fought to keep you safe from foreign adversaries, as was previously mentioned, but to double down on that, I signed the toughest ban on foreign adversaries from buying land, water, or anything in our state. If you are a foreign adversary like China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea, you are not allowed to be a part of people who operate in our state. And of all things, a new challenge surfaced over there just northeast of Dallas when you saw this Islamic Sharia city being created called Epic City. And when we learned about that, we had 5 investigations from the state of Texas, an investigation from the Attorney General, and then this last session, your representatives and your senator, they got a bill to my desk that I signed saying that Islamic Sharia cities like Epic City are banned in the state of Texas. We will not allow radical Islam to take over our state. And it was based upon laws that got to my desk that empowered me to make the designation that I made just a couple of months ago, when I realized that we had the Muslim Brotherhood and the Council on American Islamic Relations, known as CARE, both of which have long-standing ties to terrorism. I designated both of them as foreign terror organizations who are not allowed to participate in anything in the state of Texas. When you think about it, though, all this is really just common sense. We're not pushing the needle or anything like that. We're pushing back against the socialist agenda that would destroy our state. And think about this. Texas is ahead of the curve of this debate you see going on in Washington, D.C. right now with the SAVE Act. Listen, in Texas, this last session, we passed a law, and you passed a constitutional amendment, of common sense. And that is, in Texas elections, only United States citizens can vote in the state of Texas. And what they're fighting on in Washington, D.C., a voter ID. How common sense is that? In Texas, we passed the strongest voter ID law of any state in the United States, and we banned the practice of using paid operatives to bundle together these mail-in ballots that could lead to voter fraud. We're using every tool we can to ensure integrity at the ballot box during the course of our elections. Senator Hughes made reference to the border. Let's go back in time, because sometimes it seems like memories can be short, but if you can reimagine what happened under the 4 years of Joe Biden, it was the biggest catastrophe the country may have ever faced. More than 11 million people were allowed in by Joe Biden from more than 150 different countries across the globe, some of whom are on the foreign terrorist watch list, others of whom had been arrested and even jailed for murder, rape, and other vicious crimes, many of whom were human traffickers, preying upon women and children on the way to the United States of America. And what we wanted to do in Texas is, we could not control the country, but by God, we could control our own border. And that's why Texas did things no state has ever done in the history of the United States of America. Texas is the only state to ever build our own border wall. We deployed thousands of our own National Guard to build military-grade razor-wire border barrier, denying entry and actually repelling illegal immigrants from crossing into our state. And 2 sessions ago, SB4, which Brian Hughes will remember, and that is, I signed the toughest law of any state in America to prevent illegal immigration. It makes it a state crime for anybody to cross the border from Mexico into the state of Texas, and authorizes every law enforcement officer in the state to be able to arrest and deport anybody who enters our state illegally. Texas is going to ensure that we're going to have a secure border, not just for the next 3 years of the Trump administration, but we are seeking to have a secure border for the next 300 years for the future of the state of Texas. We are well on our way. Now that we have a president we can work with, we're having greater success than ever. You know, it was Cole Hefner, who was talking about all the #1 rankings that we have. One of you. Was it Cole? Alders? It was Alders. Sorry, I get you guys mixed up. So Alders was talking about our #1 rankings. Hey, we got another #1 ranking. Texas ranks #1 for the most deportations of any state in the United States of America. But as it concerns these #1 rankings, as Representative Alders was talking about, if I got up here tonight and all I did was to read a list to you of the ways in which we rank #1, it would be like a 30-minute speech. And I've already exceeded my 5 minutes, I think. But I just want to tell you this. I made clear to your representatives. I made clear to everybody in the county. I declared to the people of our state, the time has come for another #1 ranking for Texas. Texas should strive to rank #1 among all states in educating the children of our great state. Now, this is more than just a slogan. It's not just an aspiration. It's something that is achievable if you put together all the right pieces. And what Texas did this last session was put together all the right pieces. One component of that is the passage of school choice. What school choice does is 2 things. It ensures that a parent is going to be able to choose the education pathway that is the best for their child. That choice alone is going to ensure that child is getting the best education possible for that child. When you multiply that times the approximate 100,000 children who will be a part of that program, that moves the needle. But school choice does something else. It's synonymous with school competition. Listen, what we found in life in America that differentiates America from other countries is that competition matters. Competition leads to better products. Look at what it does in the sports arena. Look at what it does among businesses. Look at what competition does in politics. The same concept applies in the field of education. If you have a monopoly in education, you don't have to compete. You don't have to do your best every single day. You can take a day off. But if you have to compete every single day, you're going to bring your best and do better. And so school choice is going to make it better for the parents who choose a different pathway for their child. It's going to improve our public schools, our private schools, our charter schools. It will improve all of education in the state. But something that we knew is that even with school choice, most of our children are still going to get their education at a public school. We wanted to make sure that our public schools would be competing on a level playing field. And that's why we provided our public schools with the largest funding increase ever, more than $8 billion more to fully fund public schools here in the state of Texas. But we also know what is most important in the school, and that is teachers, and having good quality teachers. A good teacher can really advance a child's education. And we wanted to make sure that we would have the resources that would be able to attract and to retain the very best teachers. And that's why we provided an all-time record $4.4 billion teacher pay raise, the largest teacher pay raise ever in the history of our state. But here's something else, another element to being right number one. And that is, listen, you can have highly funded schools, you can have great teachers, but if your curriculum is not good, the kids aren't going to get the education they need. One thing a lot of us saw during the time of COVID, we were aghast by some of the things our children were being taught. We were shocked about the woke agenda that was being crammed down the minds of our kids. And it was said time and again that we need to stop the indoctrination of our kids. And that's why your legislators from here in Smith County, they worked with me on a bill that I signed that now bans DEI in public schools across the entire state of Texas. Oh, and by the way, we also ban boys and girls sports in public schools across the state of Texas. We have restored phonics in our classroom and cursive writing for our students to get classical education training once again. There's so many other issues that are important to the people here tonight, important to our fellow Texans across the state, issues that we've already gone to great lengths to tackle. One issue that some people are talking about is the issue of affordability, and that hits different people in different ways. You know, candidly, if you look at the cost of something like gasoline in California, it's like 3 times what it is in Texas. If you pull up Gas Buddy, you're going to find here and around Tyler, Texas, you'll find several dozen stations selling gas at less than $2 a gallon. Gasoline is one of the lowest in Texas than it is anywhere. But there are other expenses that people deal with. There are medications that people have to go buy to sustain their lives. Some people could lose their life or fall into grave ill health if they did not have access to an essential drug like insulin. Well, in Texas, we led the way. Far in advance of what the federal government talked about, in Texas we capped the cost of insulin so that no one would be denied the ability of access to a life-saving drug in Texas. One thing I've heard everywhere I've been is the rising cost of insurance and how it is really making it difficult for our small businesses to stay open. You know, small businesses typically operate on thin margins. And when your insurance doubles in a year without you even ever filing a claim, how are you going to be able to pay your bills? How are you going to be able to keep your small business open? Same thing happens to homeowners. Look at the cost of the increase of insurance for your home or your auto. Even though you may have never had a claim, that has to stop. We've been looking at what other states have been able to achieve, and we have found ways to not just slow the increase of your insurance, but we have found ways to slash the cost of your insurance, ensure you're going to be able to stay in your home, stay in your business, and better operate in a more affordable way in the state of Texas. But to be honest, the thing I hear about the most is how costly it is to stay in your home because of what property taxes does to that cost of living in your home. Well, let me tell you what we just did, and let me tell you what we need to do. What we just did last session is what we did the last 2 or 3 sessions. We passed an increase in your homestead exemption. To go back to the fundamentals, a homestead exemption is the amount of your home that is exempt from school property taxes. School property taxes are the largest part of your property tax bill. When I became governor, the homestead exemption was $15,000. In the aftermath of what we did this past session, now the first $140,000 of your homestead is not going to be taxed by your local school district. And get this, if you were a senior, I don't see any here tonight, but if you were a senior, the first $200,000 of your homestead is exempt from property taxes by your school district in the state of Texas. Instead of you paying for it, the state of Texas is going to pay for that. But listen, I hear you applauding, but I also know this. No one has ever come up to me and said, Abbott, listen, you guys are doing a great job on property taxes, and I'm perfectly happy with my property tax bill. Right? Exactly. I said, so here's what I'm telling you. If we go back to Austin, Texas again, and do the same thing we've done before, which is to increase your homestead exemption, that gets us into that situation where doing the same thing over and over and over again, expecting a different result. You know what that is? That is insanity. We cannot have insanity by doing the same thing. So I've talked to people here in Smith County, in East Texas and West Texas, North Texas and South Texas, and put together these 4 things that will more than cut your property tax bill in half and be enduring. Number 1 is to limit the singular reason why your taxes go up to begin with. The cause of taxes going up is because spending goes up. And what I say is that every property tax in jurisdiction must live within spending limits, just like your business does, just like your home does. Second, appraisals are out of control. I've had people come up to me with their hand shaking, holding their envelope of their appraisal bill, afraid to open it, thinking that when they see the appraisal, they know they will no longer be able to live in their home. And there's a reason why it goes up. By Texas law right now, your appraisal can go up 10% a year, year after year after year, until truly you are unable to stay in your home. I say it's time to slash that from 10% to no more than just 3% a year. And as opposed to having your property reappraised every year, year after year, have it appraised only once every 5 years. Another thing, and that is, I don't know about you folks, but I know in other parts of the state of Texas, many people see their property taxes increase without them even having a vote on it. Your home should never have a property tax increase without you having the ability to vote on it and to require a 2/3 vote before a property tax increase can go into effect on your homestead. And then there's this last one. This last one alone will more than cut your property tax bill in half. And that is, when it comes to education, the state of Texas should fund education, not your homestead. We will eliminate your homestead school district property tax, and instead, the state of Texas will pay that bill, freeing that money up for you to ensure that you are going to be able to live in your home for the rest of your lives. When you couple that together with all of the tax exemptions that we are providing to our small businesses, slashing the regulations for small businesses, you're going to find something happen pretty rapidly. Texas will soon become one of the most, if not the most, affordable state to live in of all the states in the United States, which creates a double-edged sword. Because you know what happens after that? Yeah, you're right. All those New Yorkers, all those people from Illinois, all those Californians, they're going to be flocking to the state of Texas. But don't think I haven't thought about it. That's why I'm coming. I'm prepared. Because here's the game plan. If we pass my property tax reform, make Texas so affordable you can't even stand it, we're going to stop building that wall on the southern border, and we're going to build a wall on the Red River, on the Sabine River. Keep all those invaders out of the state of Texas. That'd be some real change. But property tax cuts will not even be on the agenda we do not get these elections right. What's happening now for the rest of this week, all the way through May the 3rd, what happens in November is consequential to your property taxes. It's consequential to life or death decisions about letting murderers back on the streets. It's consequential to whether or not we're going to turn back to a time when open borders were accepted in the state of Texas. We cannot risk that level of chaos. We have to all be involved in this process. And let me tell you, winning elections, they're not won by speeches. They're not won by TV ads. Elections are won by one thing and one thing only, and that is people going to vote. What we all must be engaged in, from your local party to your local precinct, to us operating at a statewide level. All of us have the collective responsibility to ensure we do everything we possibly can to get every person out to vote. Let me give you some easy math. We don't need to convert anybody to win this election. The math is this, and that is in non-presidential election years, only about half as many people go vote as in a presidential election. If all we did was to get every Republican who voted in the last presidential election, it would be a landslide. But it takes manpower to be able to muster and knock on all those doors that's going to be needed to ensure we will be able to turn out that vote. That's where we need your help. And there's an easy tool that we've come up with that you can download tonight and deploy all the way through early voting. It's found on your app store, at your Apple store, or your Android store, whatever the case may be. The app name is Abbott Impact. If you download it, you'll find that you'll have the listing of all registered voters in your contact list. And you will know tomorrow whether or not they voted today. And you'll be able to call all of your friends, text all of your contacts, say, listen, I noticed you haven't voted yet. Please go vote tomorrow. Something like that. I'll do that to my entire table because I was the only one at my table who raised my hand saying that I voted. But also, it's going to connect you with your social media platforms, whether you use Facebook or X or Instagram, whatever the case may be. What I hear state representatives say to me who have used this, state senators, activists, they say it's the most effective tool they've ever used. Download it, try it out. If you don't like it, you can always delete it. But I think you'll use it and keep it because it can be so effective. But listen, we got to do this. Because, you know, one thing that every speaker got up there and talked about was East Texas values. And there's a reason why they did that. Because they know at the core of East Texas are the values. But those values actually permeate beyond just the piney woods. I was down in Corpus Christi last night at an Independence Day dinner where they read the William B. Travis letter from the Alamo. Everybody here knows what that is. Think about the grit of what that is as a part of Texas history. Texans are unique from the time of William B. Travis to the time of today. We have shared values that have made Texas exceptional. And what we have to do is we have to grasp those values every day through this election. We have to ensure that we protect freedom over fear, that we always place God over government, and that like all of us, we truly believe in the exceptionalism of what it means to be a Texan. And we can muster that and then work together to push back against all these progressive leftist socialists who are trying to take Texas to the far left. Then I can assure you that on election day in November, we are going to win that election. And we are going to achieve the most important thing we could achieve after an election, and that is to keep Texas, Texas. So thank you all. God bless you all. And God bless the great state of Texas.